Most people believe rising prices are an accident. They are told it is the result of bad timing, global shocks, greedy corporations, or temporary supply problems. When the cost of eggs doubles, when rent swallows half of a paycheck, when life feels heavier every year, the explanation is always external. Something went wrong. Something unexpected happened. But what if nothing went wrong at all? What if this is exactly how the system is supposed to work? Prices are not rising by accident. Wealth is moving. And once you see that movement, it becomes impossible to unsee it. For most people, inflation feels like a slow leak. A few percent here, a few percent there. Manageable? Normal? Even healthy, they say. But history and arithmetic tell a far darker story. Inflation is not a rising tide that lifts all boats equally. It is a wave. And like every wave, it has a point of origin. Those closest to that origin are lifted first. Those farthest away are left struggling to breathe once the water finally reaches them. By the time it reaches you, the damage has already been done. Money does not enter society evenly. It never has, and it never will. This is not a modern failure of policy. It is a structural reality that has shaped empires, destroyed middle classes, and rewritten the rules of power for thousands of years. To understand this, we have to strip money of its comforting mythology. Money is not neutral. It is not fair. It is not simply a tool of exchange. Money is a system of incentives and penalties designed by those who control its creation. And like every system of power, it rewards proximity and punishes distance. For most of human history, money was tangible. Grain stored in state granaries, silver coins stamped with imperial faces, gold carried across borders by merchants who risked their lives. If a ruler wanted to spend more, they faced a hard choice: raise taxes or wage war. Both were visible. Both were dangerous. Both carried political consequences. This visibility acted as a restraint, but at some point, restraint became the enemy. When rulers and financial elites discovered that value could be diluted instead of confiscated, everything changed. They learned how to tax without announcing it, how to take without asking, how to transfer wealth without ever calling it theft. We now call this inflation, but its real function has always been redistribution. History gave this mechanism a name long before modern central banks existed: the Cantillon effect. It describes a simple but devastating truth. New money benefits the first recipients at the expense of everyone else. Those who receive it early spend it before prices rise. Those who receive it late pay higher prices with money that has already lost its power. This pattern is not theoretical. It is not academic. It is visible across centuries. In ancient Rome, emperors faced endless military costs and shrinking resources. Rather than admit failure, they debased their currency. Silver coins were quietly mixed with copper. The army and the state spent these coins first, while they still carried trust. But as the debased coins spread through markets, merchants noticed. Prices rose. Savings collapsed. Ordinary Romans discovered that a lifetime of discipline had turned into worthless metal. No law was passed. No vote was held. Yet an entire population was taxed through dilution. Does this feel familiar? Centuries later, Spain repeated the same mistake on a global scale. Silver poured in from the mines of the New World. The crown felt invincible, rich beyond imagination. But the silver entered the economy through royal courts and elite merchant houses first. They spent freely, buying goods, land, and power while prices were still low. By the time the silver reached farmers and laborers, prices had multiplied. Treasure had not created prosperity. It had destroyed it. Spain gained silver and lost its future. The pattern never changed. Only the technology did. Today, the wave moves faster. No ships, no furnaces, no coins, just keystrokes. When modern central banks create money, it does not appear in your account. It flows first to banks, financial institutions, corporations, and asset markets. They buy before prices adjust. They protect themselves before the consequences arrive. By the time money reaches wages, pensions, or savings accounts, its purchasing power has already been stripped away. This is why your salary always feels late. This is why your raise never keeps up. This is why saving feels like standing still while the world moves past you. You are receiving late money, and late money always loses. Think about it carefully. When inflation is 5% and your savings earn 1%, you're not being rewarded for patience. You're paying a fee for obedience. You're trading time, labor, and discipline for a currency that is quietly designed to betray you. How many years have you done everything right and still felt further behind? This is not because you failed. It is because the system requires losers to function. Borrowers are rewarded. Asset holders are protected. Debtors watch the real value of what they owe shrink over time. Inflation works for them, against you. The system teaches you to blame landlords, grocers, or employers, while the real transfer happened months earlier in rooms you will never enter. This is not an accident. It is the engine. Before we go any further, ask yourself this. If prices keep rising, if wages keep lagging, if saving keeps failing, who exactly is winning? Who is closest to the source of the money? And where do you stand in that chain? Because once you start asking that question, the story you have been told about inflation can no longer survive. The first part revealed the mechanism, but to understand the full scale of what is happening, we need to look at the endgame. Because redistribution is not a side effect of inflation. It is its purpose. Today, global debt has surpassed $300 trillion. This is not a number meant to be repaid. It is not even a number meant to be understood. It is a structure, a permanent dependency, a system that can only survive if money continues to lose value. If currencies remain stable, this entire mountain of debt would collapse under its own weight. Inflation is not used because it is convenient. It is used because it is necessary. Every empire that reached this stage faced the same dilemma. Either admit insolvency or silently erase obligations through devaluation. History shows us which option power always chooses. France, before the revolution, diluted its currency while assuring citizens everything was under control. The Weimar Republic printed to stabilize society and instead destroyed it. Rome debased until trust collapsed. In every case, the narrative was the same. Temporary measures, necessary sacrifices, stability just around the corner, and in every case, the result was identical. Those closest to power exited into real assets. Everyone else was left holding promises. Does this pattern feel distant, or does it feel uncomfortably current? Modern redistribution is simply faster and more precise. Central banks no longer rely on crude debasement. They use balance sheets, liquidity programs, emergency facilities, quantitative easing. Each new intervention pushes the way forward. Each pause reassures the public while transferring value upward. The stock market rises, asset prices explode, and people are told this is a sign of health, even as their lives become more fragile. This is why you see a booming market alongside a shrinking middle class. It is not a paradox, it is proof. The machine is working exactly as designed. And now we are approaching the most dangerous phase of all, because when inflation alone is no longer sufficient to maintain control, systems evolve. The future of redistribution is not hidden, it is openly discussed. Central bank digital currencies, programmable money, direct control over how value moves, where it can be spent, and when it expires. This is not innovation for convenience. It is the final removal of resistance, a system where saving is no longer discouraged, but impossible, where money becomes permission instead of property. Ask yourself honestly, if money can be programmed, who programs it? If it can expire, who decides when? If it can be frozen, who defines acceptable behavior? At that point, redistribution is no longer economic. It becomes political, social, and personal. This is not fear. This is trajectory. Redistribution is also a transfer of time. When your savings lose half their value, the system has not taken money from you. It has taken years of your life. Hours worked, effort stored, discipline delayed. Every inflationary cycle shortens the ladder just as people are climbing it. This is why ownership feels further away with every generation. This is why renting replaces building, why survival replaces planning. The wealthy do not hold cash. They never have. They hold what cash is used to buy: land, energy, infrastructure, productive systems. They position themselves upstream where money is still strong. Everyone else lives downstream, absorbing the dilution. So what survives when currencies fail? History is brutally consistent on this point. Not paper claims, not digital balances, not promises issued by institutions that require inflation to survive. What survives are things rooted in reality: productive land, tangible assets, skills that solve real problems, knowledge that cannot be diluted, trust that cannot be printed. Empires collapse when the illusion breaks. But individuals who understand the illusion early do not collapse with them. They adapt, they reposition, they step out of the theater while everyone else is still watching the stage. This is why history matters, not as nostalgia, not as trivia, but as a map. Because the same forces repeat, even when the language changes, even when the technology advances, even when the story sounds new. Before this ends, ask yourself a final question. If inflation is redistribution, and redistribution is already underway, are you positioned where the value is moving from, or where it is moving to? And if the system requires your savings, your time, and your silence to function, what happens the moment you stop believing the story? History has answers. I merely show you where to look. And if this deep financial journey has given you a new perspective, like the video and subscribe, because the real story begins the moment you recognize the system you're living inside.